We're going to talk about kind of the competitive landscape. The first two sessions, and they're available. Hopefully, if you've missed any of those sessions, you can see them on the YouTube channel. Those two sessions were much more focused around communications with your clients and with your prospects. This session is going to focus on the competitive landscape. So without further ado, Deborah.
Thank you, Michael. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. As Michael said, my name's Deborah Baker, and I am the CEO and founder of Law Leaders Lab. Our company is really built on the premise that the way most law firms are currently running their businesses is not sustainable over the long term. So we work with lawyers to help them rethink the way they create, deliver, and communicate that value to clients. Today we're talking about the changing faces of the legal market. And as Michael said, for those of you who were on the previous two sessions, we've really been focusing on the client and a lot of the dynamics impacting the client side of things and that are impacting the way we practice law. And today we want to kind of shift that focus. The clients are certainly one of the most important changing faces of the legal market, but we want to shift that focus and also look at what the law firm landscape itself looks like, because as we think about how we create and deliver value to clients, we need to be able to do so from the context of what our clients are hearing from the other firms that they're talking to. So even if your firm may or may not fit into one of these categories, you need to really think about these firms because all of them have an impact on the way any firm does business. So as we've been talking about, the client tops the chart of the new faces of the legal industry. We've been talking a lot about it, but the trend we're seeing in the market is it's absolutely a buyer's market. And I've been using this slide for the last two presentations, and really the drivers of change that are going on right now come down to three important things. It's time. Our clients don't have as much time as they used to have. We don't have as much time to be out there building business. So when we're getting together, we need to make that time really valuable. Risk. Legal services are high-risk, high-cost events, and pre-financial crisis, pre-2008, you might have seen a lot of people making unilateral decisions, but the sales evidence that's out there right now says that even the most rogue CEO or CFO who says, I want it done and I want it done now, they're still going to get input from other people. So marketing becomes more and more important in terms of how we reach not just the decision makers, but the influencers involved in that have the ear of our decision makers. And then finally, technology. Sales evidence for business-to-business sales is showing that decision makers are more than 50% through their decision-making process before they're having their first conversation with the supplier of that service. So if we aren't, if our marketing presence is not mirroring our face-to-face presence, we may be missing important opportunities. So again, for those of you who have been on the previous sessions, here's kind of the nut as it relates to client. It's business development as usual is costly. It's harder and harder to get face-to-face meetings. Referrals are still really, really important and our greatest source of new business, but those referrals may not be calling you as often as they used to be. The meetings you may be having may not be leading to the business that you want to get, and the work that you're getting is increasingly smaller and increasingly price sensitive. So when it comes to the client, that face of the legal industry is more important than ever. The impact, I like to say, is that it's more important than ever that we don't just pitch our services to clients. We don't just qualify ourselves for why we are qualified to do the business. We actually have to create business cases as to why clients should hire us over anyone else. So that's the first face. Now let's kind of dive into those people who look like us. The first category of new face of the legal industry I like to call is the ultra-rich, the ultra firm. And this is a real product of just the consolidation that we've been seeing in the big law world. And the data point I'd like to talk about on this is 1.4 million. And that 1.4 million refers to profits per partner. And it's the gap between the top 20 firms. If you look at for those of you who follow the AmLaw tables, we have that profit per partner chart that comes out. And if you look at that chart in the context of the first 20 or so firms, and you take the average of their partner per profits, and then take the rest of the AmLaw 100 and look at the average of their profits per partner, there is a $1.4 million gap between those two groups of people. And what that reflects is this handful of what I call ultra-rich firms that are really creating a huge competitive advantage when it comes to that high-value bet the company work. And because of that, they're able to cherry pick. The best talent, and we're seeing that it's creating a lot of fragment. This handful of firms is responsible for a lot of the fragmentation we're seeing in the AmLaw 100 firms. So you may or may not be in that ultra-rich category or even in an AmLaw 100 firm, but this tier of firm is having a direct impact on all lawyers' businesses, and it's really a trickle-down effect. So you have the ultra-rich firms that are capturing the bulk of this bet the company work, and what that means is that the national firms, and when I started in big law, it was the early 2000s, and I think it was fair to say that bet the company work was pretty evenly distributed among the AmLaw 100. As more and more of that work gets consolidated with this handful of ultra-rich firms, it's creating pressures on the national firms, and we're seeing them start to move downstream and go after more of the middle market work that perhaps regional and local firms had the opportunity. So it's just changing that competitive landscape, because you're now competing, instead of competing big firm against big firm, medium-sized firm against medium firm, small firm against small firm, you're seeing all three sizes of firm are competing for the same type of business. So that's a big trend that we're seeing. A second trend, the third group of people, the third new face is the mega firm. And the trend we're seeing here is around this concept of globalization. These firms that are getting more and more geographically distributed. And this is important because the same clients that are driving the work that we're doing, increasingly, even mid-sized companies are having cross-border legal issues. So that ability to be everywhere is pretty significant. The data point I've been using for this tier of firms is 91%. And that 91% refers to, if you look at the AmLaw 100 firms around the globe, 91% of the AmLaw firms have non-U.S. locations. What's interesting about that is only a handful of those 91 firms are truly global. So we're seeing this rise of the mega firm, and those are firms like DLA Piper, Baker McKenzie, where they are literally everywhere. And the impact that this is having on the legal market, from a legal market standpoint, is pretty significant, because we're seeing these firms buy up more and more of the mid-size and small firms. So they're basically buying market share. And this is happening not just in large financial centers, but in middle market communities. And over time, that presents a pretty significant competitive advantage, particularly to local firms in those regions, because it gives them a certain amount of buying power. You know, we haven't seen this happen yet, but it's entirely possible that you take a firm like a DLA who's going to go into a new market. They could cut their rates for a period of time to put their competitors out of business, and then over time go back and raise the rates because they've got that balance of the, they've got that geographic balance that they can afford to have some more loss leader type activities. So, combined, you think about the ultra-rich firm that is the ultra-rich firm, which is kind of consolidating the high-value work. You've got the mega firm, which is starting to take ownership over kind of the mid-market size work and the geographic perspective. It's creating some very large impacts on how we operate, and we need to think about that in terms of, again, how we're selling our services to the clients. The fourth group, I think, is the one that I've seen the most activity from, particularly in the last 18 months, 2 years. I call this the breakout firm. And this is, I define the breakout firm as lawyers with portable books of business who are leaving big law to start their own firms, largely because of some of the frustrations they're seeing, both in the fact that, it's a buyer's market, that the high-value work is getting consolidated, that they're feeling price pressures from mega firms. We're seeing a lot of lawyers saying, I want to get out of this game, but I'm a really good lawyer. I come from this great pedigree of a law firm, and I can do something better if I go out on my own. So the data point here is minus 1.1 and positive 6.5. That refers to the 2013 numbers where demand was down. Demand for legal services was down by 1.1%, yet blended rates went up by 6.5%. And a lot of lawyers are just feeling that they can't compete in that market. And their clients are telling them that. They're saying, hey, we love you. We're going to give you what work we can, but your price structure is too high for us to afford that. To afford you all the time, so they're getting less and less of that work, and it's creating a lot of price pressures on the market. I think it's really tough when you look at how these firms are competing right now. A lot of them are going in with the mindset that they were going to create a new way to practice law, and I think there's great opportunities to do that. But the other thing that's happening is that right away, just by moving out of the big law environment, most of these firms are cutting their rates by 30%. So it's creating a price advantage that even mid-sized firms that have been selling themselves on big firm resources, small firm rates, they're now they're really feeling pressure from these types of firms as well. So the breakout firm is definitely having a huge impact on the legal market today. The fifth face of the legal industry is the non-law firm. What we're seeing is an industry, a profession. We've really been building this profession around lawyers have been selling document creation and document review. They've been throwing the knowledge work in for free. But what has happened as technologies have become available, as non-law firm service providers have made it possible for companies to either outsource these types of activities, or it's just a lot of commoditized pressure on the rates around things like document review and document creation. So it's very hard for lawyers to sell these things. And because of that, when we talk about what's happening with the ultra-rich at that one end of the spectrum with the high-value work, the day-to-day work, that lower value but high-volume work that is the staple of a lot of the areas that lawyers do business, that's starting to create price pressure at the other end. So that's, the two are squeezing all that work into, all the lawyers are kind of competing for one group of the same work. The data point I use for this is 20%. 20% reflects the number of corporate filings in California that is done through LegalZoom each year. And this is it's a 2012 number, but I think it's been pretty consistent since 2012. So 20% of all corporate filings are not being handled by lawyers. It's really, again, for the day-to-day work, it's creating a lot of commoditization in the marketplace. So again, these are the 5 new faces of the legal industry. It's the client who's using it's a buyer's market for those clients, and they are more sophisticated and they have more options on who to buy from. When it comes to the really high-value work, this ultra-rich tier of firms is able to not only capture that high-value work, but also cherry-pick and create fragmentation and instability in the remaining big law type firms. The mega firms are starting to create competitive advantages when it comes to handling global legal services. So our clients who have work that is moving cross borders. And then there's the breakout firms who are selling big law at small law prices, are creating price pressures in the market. And then you have the non-law firm service providers. And they are, again, really starting to eat away at some of that day-to-day bread and butter work that we're used to doing. So how do we address these challenges? And I think the idea we're always trying to discuss with our clients is that what we're talking about is differentiation, and if you can't differentiate your services, you really don't have a strategy. And this is more than a marketing problem. It impacts really every aspect of our business. And what we encourage, although we tend to come at our clients from a marketing and business development perspective, when you start talking about differentiation, we're really looking at things like talent management. How can we better staff our cases to create a competitive advantage? What can we do along our pricing structure and the way we're packaging our services that will differentiate us in the market? How can we use technology? How can we use our information systems? How can we use the data inside our firm to create competitive advantages? And again, what can we do to better serve and grow our clients, I know one of Michael's goals in putting this series together is to make sure that you have some takeaways in that you can use today. These are big challenges that we're talking about, and they're not things that you're going to solve in a very short period of time, but there are ways to start these conversations. And so this chart here, and I know we're going to distribute it after the presentation is over, it's just a way to get you, maybe give you some tools to start thinking about how you can drive these conversations inside of your firm. So the first one is, do you have a value proposition that differentiates either you or your firm, even when you're being compared to other lawyers who do the same thing? So again, you can have this conversation with an individual lawyer, with your practice group, with your firm leadership all together. And that really goes, again, to these issues that we've been talking about, these concepts that we've been talking about, whether it's technology or talent management or use of data or niche practices. Are you doing something that's truly different in the market? The second one is the target market. And I know most of the people on this call are marketing people, but I think we still seem to forget that the more targeted we can define our ideal clients, the more targeted we can get, the stronger our message is. It's very, very difficult to differentiate yourself when you're trying to be all things to all people, because the bigger your message gets, the more watered down it gets. So what are different ways? How can you tailor your markets, and how can you develop business cases that are specific to that defined market? And again, this is just one area of many where CRM technology is incredibly important, and I think we still tend to look at marketing technologies as separate from marketing, from strategic marketing itself. But without these technologies, these things can't get married. So that targeting component is really important. Once you've targeted that market, are you thinking about your client's problems from the concept of their pain points? Not what you can do for them as a law firm, but what problems are you solving for them? And many of these pain points go outside legal issues. And our lawyers struggle with this. But what we need to do a better job of is solving business problems, providing legal solutions to business problems. So really thinking through, we have a process, a persona development process, where we really try to understand the mindset of the clients. And we think about that from the company's perspective, from the industry's perspective, and also that individual buyer. What are the pain points? What are the challenges and struggles your decision maker is facing, and how can you solve those problems? Because that's going to get you much closer to a sale than just repeating what your resume is or trying to, pitch your services. And again, what are the trends and issues that occur over time, time and time again when you're working with clients? This question is a really great way to get into a conversation with clients about, or with attorneys about what they do that really is different, and what approaches, how they use their knowledge from past experiences and how they can apply that to clients. I think one of the best conversations that a lawyer can have with their client is a conversation that looks something like, time and time again, I've seen these types of issues with clients who look just like you. Are those problems you're facing, or is it something else? And what the lawyer is doing is they're drawing on their personal experience. They're drawing on their knowledge and the insight that they bring to the table to generate a conversation with the client. In none of that conversation do you have to say, I went to Harvard, I'm first in my class, I've done 50 deals, these are what my clients, because you're validating through your experience how valuable you are to this client. And you're also creating a conversation as opposed to selling. And so I think number 4 can be a very powerful question. And then the last one is, am I confident the current way I deliver legal services will be sustainable over time, even when there's price pressures and the potential for new technologies? And again, that's the purpose of that, is to try to gear these conversations with the attorneys to think about better ways to deliver their legal services. They may apply the same approach, but how they package and how they deliver those services are going to be more valuable to the clients that they're serving. So this framework is our approach to having some of these conversations. Again, I use it here just for some data points that might be helpful. I think particularly this section on differentiation strategies. I use these with clients just to try to peel back the onion, or peel back that layer of their knowledge and go one step beyond, here are the features and benefits that our legal services provide, and try to take that to the next level. If anybody's interested in getting more information about this, I'd be happy to talk to you about it offline. And I know we've got just a couple minutes left. We've been trying to keep these programs down to 30 minutes. So if anyone has any questions, I think that there's a question area on the technology. And while Michael's collecting those questions, I wanted to let you know about some research that we've just done. It's called The Evolution of Value in Legal Services, and it's a framework for defining value and improving the delivery of legal services. A lot of what we're talking about today is an outcome of this research, and this research was with CEOs, CFOs, and general counsel of mid-sized clients. It was very much focused on taking that elusive concept of value and putting some meat around it and putting some legs around it. So we've got a value framework. Again, it can be valuable to start conversations inside your firm, and it's available free on our website. Just sign up for our newsletter, and you'll get access to it for free. And with that, Michael, were there any questions?
You know, you've obviously covered the topic extremely well, Deborah. We have no questions coming in. I think that, you know, we're right at the end of our time. Thank you so much, all of the attendees, and especially Deborah Baker, for your time and commitment to our webinar program. Deborah's offered to participate again in 2015 with a big data discussion, so we're going to have Deborah back in the fold next year. Thank you so much, Deborah. Keep an eye out. The next session is November 12th. Very interesting and timely topic, how to turn the collection season into a business development opportunity, presented by Julie Savarino. We do have a question. Yes, there's a question about the slides. We are going to make the slides available from the entire series, and Karen will make sure that you get a copy of those. With that, again, thank you, everyone, and we'll see you in the next series. Thank you, Deborah.
Thanks, Michael.